Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find wonderful things like classes. We offer a free Sunday gathering inspirational service with medium demonstration included, and so much more. If you'd like a free copy of my book, just scroll to the bottom of the page at wedon'tdie.com, enter your name and email address. It says you only get the first few chapters. The secret is it's the entire book. Chapter 10 is about grief, and I think it's some of the most important words. Now, we have a very special episode for you today as we delve into the world of the universal spiritual brotherhood and sisterhood, also called the USB. With us are two individuals connected to this organization, Peter Sparks and John Finnemore. Peter brings decades of experience as a spiritual healer and ordained minister with a fascinating journey that includes working alongside his late wife, who was a trance medium, doing paranormal investigations, and he was also a sound engineer. John, a retired engineering professor, has been involved with the USB since 1959 and now is its esteemed leader. The USB is a unique nonprofit organization dedicated to sharing spiritual truth and philosophy received through top-class mediumship from illumined souls in the highest spirit realms. Their mission is to spiritualize humanity, and John has even compiled their extensive teachings into a book called Spiritual Light. I'll show it off for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Today, we'll explore the history, purpose, and profound teachings of the USB through the eyes of these two gentlemen who have dedicated much of their lives to this important work. They also happen to be brother-in-laws. You can find out more at theusb.org. John and Pete, welcome to We Don't Die.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandra. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Let's start with where on planet Earth you gentlemen are right now. John,
I'm in California in South San Francisco Bay area, near to San Jose.
Beautiful.
I'm in the town of Cupertino, actually. Okay.
Oh, I know just where that is. And Pete, where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Scotland, and not far from a place called Peterhead, which is about 3.5 hours further north than Edinburgh. So it's quite a way up. You know?
It is. And I'm in the United States also. I am in the smallest town called Rhode Island, about an hour and a half south from Boston, Massachusetts. So that's the group you're listening to today. I'd like to start out with Pete, because Pete, you were the one who said this story needs to be told. We must interview John. Also invited yourself to be here. But could you talk a little bit about your passion behind the USB and why you thought it was so important that we bring this information to the greatest audience?
Because it is something that there's not been a book like this before. There's been lots of people that brought things through from spirit, but this has all been done by either independent direct voice or deep, very deep trance. So it's rings true to me. And with Deanna, my wife, then, she was obviously John's sister, and we worked together on it, and we've done quite a bit of work, and I feel that it is the way forward. It's all truth. You know, whether you believe it or not, it's up to you, but they always say, if you don't believe it or you can't take it, then disregard it. They don't force it down your throat, you know? So to me, that's good. That's very good. And I'm doing work on various things for John, another little video we're doing, which has Sue in it. Sue was part of that. And also the audio and things like that I do for the USB when the time comes. Starting on it, but we've got audio tracks and things to do. So, yes, I believe, it's part of life. And everybody needs to really know about it because it will help them. There's I mean, even the paperback is such a thick book. Obviously, the one that you've got there is the there's much thinner paper in it, but the content's the same. So there's lots of information. A lovely index that John's done. It took him years to sort this all out, and it's a tribute to him. I know he's not looking for anything like that, but it is a tribute to him.
Oh, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Pete. John, I'd like to talk to you about what the USB is and how you became involved. Where did the idea start? Tell us the story.
Okay, thank you. Well, I became involved through a friend of my parents who was running a home circle, and I was at college at the time. I went home for the summer, and they invited me to join them. And the gentleman who was running the circle, he was a deep trance medium, and he took me for a walk one day and gave me a little leaflet and said, "I think, John, you will really find this interesting." And he gave me a little leaflet about the USB, which I took home and studied, and I thought, I've never heard of anything like this. This is right up my alley. I'm going to join it right away. And it was led by a gentleman named Michael Flagg in San Francisco, who had founded the organization. So I started receiving quarterly newsletters from him by post. This was long before internet, and it was I started in 1959. A couple of years or so later, I got married and emigrated with my wife, who's now been my wife for 63 years and an invaluable help in all the work I'm doing. Anyway, we immigrated to Canada, and then after 3 years, we moved to California so I could attend graduate school. And this is at Stanford on the San Francisco Peninsula. And lo and behold, there I was, just 50 miles away from Michael, who lived in San Francisco. So, of course, we got together and became friends. And I had a very enjoyable time because when I visited him, or when we visited him, he described his various experiences, how he'd got into the USB himself. He didn't know anything about mediumship or so on, but for some reason or other, he heard about that there were certain meetings going on in San Francisco. And so when he went to one of these meetings, he was absolutely amazed. He told me that there was like pyrotechnics in the room. The room was full of people standing by all the walls and everything. There was so many people, and the spirit messages were coming from two different mediums to different members of the audience. And these lights were flashing all around the room while people were listening. He said it was a pyrotechnic show. And then he started getting messages from these mediums, and he continued meeting with them after that show was over because he was so interested. And these messages he got are just like we don't die evidence. I mean, they are messages from people, like, firstly, relatives. He received messages. He was an older man. He was the youngest child in his family, and a lot of them were older than him, and some of them had already died. And his father came through. His father had died. He heard from his father 24 times in 2 years. And he had two sisters who had died. And one of them, Rachel, he heard from her 45 times in a period of 2 years. And one of those times, she appeared in materialization. He actually saw her form in the room with him. So how could he doubt that? I mean, this is very convincing evidence, right? He was blown away by the evidence. He also heard from an uncle and 2 aunts. So there was about 6 or 7 different relatives that he heard from. And then there were other people that who were not relatives, like there was a minister and a family doctor who had passed on. He heard from them, and some relatives of friends of his. And then he also heard from about 7 different famous people from the past, like famous authors. He heard from Hypatia of Egypt, an interesting person. And also Woodrow Wilson, a former president, came through and spoke to him. And then a number of people like John Keats, Elizabeth Browning, Louisa Alcott, Katie Fox, one of the Fox sisters, and other people like that. He heard from a lot of different people, and he was absolutely convinced this was the truth, you know? I mean, you couldn't deny it. And so he got more and more involved, and he found that they encouraged him to investigate it more deeply, which I will tell you about if you want to hear about why he went to England.
Yes, I would love to hear that. Would you just tell us
Yes.
these meetings that happened? Was it a small group of people, a large group? Was it the same mediums every time?
There were a few very famous mediums in San Francisco at the time, and one of them had been invited to go to D.C. to give readings to the president. This was in the past before he met them. But there were church meetings. They made a religion about spiritualism, as I'm sure you know, and he attended some of those. And so there were messages given to the congregation in larger groups, but they also had their private meetings, like
circles.
like a hub circle meetings. That's right. He even had private sittings sometimes. He paid for private, or he was invited to given a private sitting. So there were a number of different ways that they came through. Yes.
And then the move to Canada. And let me just ask, were these recorded, or they must have been to have a book like this? Someone must have been recording. What is the progression now of
How did
the
they come?
USB?
How did the book come about? You mean?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So let me just see. Well, I just wanted to tell you that he
You mentioned Canada, right?
now Canada was where I emigrated from England when I first came to Canada. But from Canada, I came to California to go to graduate school. So I was now in California relatively permanently. I mean, I did leave for 1 year, but I was here
Okay.
the rest of my life. I stayed in California, and that's where I worked with Michael over the years. Now, he was introduced in this way through all these meetings to these teachers, people who wanted to teach him. He really didn't realize at the time I figured this out, that he had actually come to life on Earth to serve as their representatives. Okay? He was their contact. And so they, after all this great evidence of all the people he met, they recommended him to go to England, where he was hardly known, and have sittings with some of the most famous mediums in England. They were Leslie Flint. I think everybody who's into spiritualism knows about Leslie Flint. He's a really famous medium, independent, direct voice. He was conscious while the spirit spoke through an ectoplasmic voice box on his shoulder. And he had a young, Mickey was his helper in spirit. And then he also went to Estelle Roberts, another very famous English medium, who had a guide named Red Cloud. Now, we are very fortunate that Mickey and Red Cloud still come to us in our meetings with Spirit to this day. Yes, but anyway, he had lots of the very interesting presentations by the Spirit teachers, by Red Cloud and by other teachers who came through Leslie Flint and told him about the work that they wanted him to do. They explained that in the spirit realms, there's a very large organization called the Universal Spiritual Brotherhood. We only added the sisterhood on Earth because people complained. But in spirit, they don't distinguish between males and females. They just say we're all one. And so they didn't bother about that. But anyway, they gave him the teachings about spirit world and what they wanted him to do. And they explained to him that they were very concerned about our earth world, that it was under threat. But it had been under threat a number of times by nuclear war and so possibility. And now it was under threat by global warming. And they were concerned that they might lose this world, this physical world, where all the spirit people incarnate here to come and learn the lessons that Earth teaches us. It's a much more challenging life than life in spirit. This is a very difficult life because, we have to provide food and shelter and all those things. And so they wanted to spread their teachings, their knowledge that they had gained from very long study of life from the spirit world. They wanted to spread that to Earth, and they wanted Michael to be the conveyor, as it were, right? To deliver it to us on Earth. And so he realized that, and they gave him the names of some of the leaders. I'm just going to mention a few of the leaders of this organization. The organization in the spirit realms, not our organization. We have our own leaders who are people who recently lived on Earth. Some of them, I met them. I know them, and they're living in spirit now and guiding us from there. Right. But the big organization in spirit who asked Michael to form an organization on Earth that was patterned on the spirit organization, right? And so we're trying to follow their lead in our work. And they told us that the top leaders include, foremost is Ahura Mazda. I don't know, many people may not have heard of Ahura Mazda. He was an ancient
Zoroastrian.
What's the word?
Zoroastrian.
Zoroaster. He's the god of the Zoroastrians now. People don't even know that he lived on Earth anymore, but he did originally. But he was the early spiritual leader of ancient Persia, even before Zoroastrianism. So he leads these other folks. They are Jesus, Krishna, Lao Tse, Muhammad, Moses, and Zoroaster. These are some of the topmost leaders, and they all agree on the teachings that they have delivered to us. It's not just one person's teachings, it's a group of wonderful souls who all agree on what they teach. And that's what we've received through Michael and his wife, Ruth. After Michael went back from England to San Francisco, he needed a medium, and he somehow discovered Ruth. She was working in New York State, and she came over to give him help for a few weeks from time to time, gave him sittings every day. And after a few weeks, she decided she wanted to devote her life to it. And she married him and worked with him for the rest of her life, doing deep trance mediumship for Michael to. I've got recordings of Michael talking to these various spirit teachers and discussing the teachings, which they didn't dictate to him. They didn't tell him what to publish. They said, discuss this with us, then you write it up in the form of a newsletter, and then they will review it the way that he's written it to make sure that they're happy with it. They wanted him to do it in the ways of the world and not in their ways, but they wanted to be sure that they approved everything that he said, and then they approved them, and he would distribute them once a quarter to people on Earth. No charge. He mailed them to all parts of the world. Took weeks and weeks to deliver, but he did it. And that's how I received the letters. And that's how I transmitted them. And they got into the newsletters. And
I think that's the most interesting bit for people who are listening, or
yes.
that Michael used to go back to, as it Flint or Estelle Roberts, and go to the same guides will come through next time, and they will review the letters. That's how they did it. So you don't normally get the same person come through if you go for a reading. You know, it's not always the same person. So that's how it was done, which is even more convincing, you know. And also, they used to, you might go to Leslie Flint in the morning and get a certain bit of information, then go to Estelle Roberts in the afternoon and get the continuation of that information from the same guide. So this is good proof that it wasn't just pie in the sky stuff. It was real good quality stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I love it. You know, same as John, you know.
That's amazing. So correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it something like 24 years he was involved with this project?
Michael and Ruth did this for 24 years. You're quite right. They put out, over the years, 93 newsletters. In the end, he developed various problems, physical problems, that he couldn't do it anymore. He just hadn't got the energy to do it. And so, but anyway, 24 years together, they worked on producing all these newsletters. And the spirit people told us that they were very concerned that they were having so much work in the spirit realms to try and help people who had recently died and didn't understand afterlife and didn't understand a lot of the basic truths that they needed to know, to how they should have behaved on Earth and so forth. And so they wanted to pass on these teachings for that reason. And they told us that their organization in spirit, the Universal Spiritual Brotherhood, is the oldest such organization there. It's the largest such organization there, and it's the best organized. And so on Earth, we formed a non-religious, non-profit organization to follow their lead, as it were.
And these teachings are timeless. And I just hear in what you're saying that all of these people from days gone by could work together because the truth is the truth, the spiritual light, as the name of the book.
Truth is a fundamental issue in the USB's practice of teachings. Yes, they say that people on Earth can follow many different leads, maybe politicians' leads, or medicine leads, or religious leads, but those things can let you down. They can turn out to be wrong. But truth is truth. Real truth, which the USB defines with a capital T, truth with a capital T, they define as that which is eternal, that which never changes. Anything which never changes is real truth. And that's the best guide that you can follow in life, is follow truth. And so they're trying to pass on teachings of truth. You see, they have watched life on earth and in the spirit realm for thousands of millions of years, and they have figured out what's true and what isn't, what really doesn't change. And so that's what they're teaching us to follow that.
Could you share, John and Pete, some of these teachings? Because you know what's happening in the world these days, and there's some things that people need to hear. Would you mind just sharing some of the teachings that might touch the hearts of folks right now?
Yes. Well, the books have about 800 pages in some of those books. And there's a lot of teachings, and it's very hard to remember them all.
Oh, you don't have to, but are there some that you just live your life based on, some of these teachings?
Yes. Teachings about truth involve how to understand truth, how to find truth, how to share truth. There are a lot of teachings about truth, and some of the most important truths are laws that they have found, that laws that govern. Now, many people have heard of karma, right? And to us, that's the teaching known as the law of cause and effect, which says that anything you do will come back to you and benefit you if you did good things, and trouble you if you did bad things. You will have to pay the consequences or earn the consequences of everything you do. And that's the law of cause and effect. But they teach that that's only half of the law of justice. The law of justice also teaches that if something happens to you that you didn't deserve, then there's the law of compensation, which will compensate you for that unexpected happening. So the compensation and the cause and effect together provide everyone with perfect justice. We don't necessarily get it in this lifetime. We may get it later, but we will definitely get it. That's what they have determined, and that's what they teach. That's the law of justice. There's another law of personal responsibility, that we are responsible for everything we say and do. We are responsible for it. You might think you can get away with something. You can't. It's completely tight. And then there's a law of service. And that the law of service says that the more knowledgeable you are, the more spiritual you are, the more you understand, and the more gifted you are, the more responsible you are to give service to others. That's a very lovely idea, and I think people need to be aware of that. And that's what we're trying to do, to spread that. There's a lot taught about love and God and service. The USB definitely teaches about God. They don't question that. And there are some religions that are not sure about the existence of God, but our USB is very certain of it. They have determined it to be for sure.
I like the word light. And when you're talking about religions, someone once said that there couldn't be one religion for all of planet Earth. There's just too many different people. But they say, just like lamps, there could be different lamps, but the light is the same. Different religions, but the light is the same. And I love that. And I hold on to that myself. So I love spiritual light being the title. I want to ask, is there teachings about what comes after life, or how close our loved ones are?
Yes, okay. There are teachings about our world and daily life. There are teachings about phenomena. There's teachings about survival and communication. There's teachings about spirit life, life in the spirit realms, and there's teachings about spiritual progress. So those subjects are all addressed in parts of the book.
Thank you. I want to turn to Pete. And I want to ask you, with the USB and these teachings, are there some that really mean the most to you, that help you live your life? I know we participate together in so many things on Zoom, on classes through our friend Scott Milligan, and so much of what you share holds true on the teachings that we hear through trance demonstrations. But Pete, would you share a little bit about your love of the USB and the teachings?
Yes, I found that when I first started, well, long time before I started, well, I met Dee and that sort of thing. That's when the spiritual side really kicked off, because she was a spiritual medium. But before that, we used to talk about, my father and myself always said, you can't lose anything. Energy is just transferring from one thing to another. And he believed there was another dimension, whatever. And there is. The spirit world is another dimension. So I believe that the world of spirit is where we should be all the time. And that the only reason we come here, as John has said, that we need to have a physical existence to give us an overall picture of what we're going to be doing when we're in the world of spirit. I think the USB does give you so much information, and it's a reading book, but it's really meant for reading. And I've been through it with a few people, some of which were mediums. We used to have a class, and we go through it and read so much, perhaps 2 pages a morning or something like that, and discuss it. And it's a discussion document. It makes you think, and that's what it's about. That's the way you get the best out of it, by discussing the topics.
Pete, I'm sorry, I accidentally pressed a button and we can't hear you. That is
Sorry.
my fault. So you're just saying, I can edit that. You're just saying that the book is meant, you can have discussions from the pages.
That's what it's meant for. You can read it, of course, but to get the best out of it, if you discuss it with others in a group, that was the whole essence of it. That you can get much more out of it that way, because each one has their own idea about what a particular set of words say, or what a particular rule is, or whatever. And I found that most interesting doing that. And there's 1 or 2 groups or 3 groups or so that have been around in recent times. One in Spain, that's Dee's sister, who lives in Spain. She had a group, and she's been very involved in the book as well. So we've all been involved in it. We've all got caught up in it. And I find that if there's anything you want to know, all you've got to do is go in the back, and there's pages and pages of index, and then could want to know, just look it up and it's there, So
Thank
it's
you.
a reference book as well.
I wanted to ask you, gentlemen, how you first got involved in spiritualism and this. Is this a lifelong thing? Because you both have wives that were mediums, were. When did it all start for each one of you? Pete, why don't you share, and then we'll go back to John, and then we'll talk more about the book.
Okay. Well, in my case, I say I was interested. My father was an engineer, only first engineer before the war, and when we used to have discussions as I was growing up, he would say, "Well, you can burn something, but you've not lost it. You might have lost a bit of paper, but you haven't lost the energy that was within it, because it's been changed into other things, ash and light and heat and all the rest of it." So it's the same with us. When we die, the energy that is us doesn't die. It can't die. It's energy. So it goes to another dimension. It's the only place it could go. That was his engineering way he thought about it, And so I was already into being almost like spiritualist without even thinking about it, because I was doing it from an engineering point of view, which my father instilled in me. But then I met Dee through going to one of us. Well, I work for the local authority, and one of the ladies there that worked there, she was a medium. She didn't do platform work, but she was a medium. And she said, well, you need to go and see Dee. She does training and that. So I went to see Dee, and I knew who Dee was when I walked into this room. Lots of people in there knew exactly who Dee was without even being told. So eventually I got to know, became a healer, started doing healing, and obviously, like, things happen and you become an item, as they say these days. I mean, and then we used to go around doing churches around the East Anglia area, Sunday nights or Saturday nights or psychic suppers and things like that. So we got quite involved in it. And also we did ghost busting. That's the term we put on it. Some would say, can you come along, like I'll just reiterate, one person we went to, the phone would ring, and this lady had it disconnected. She was on her own now, and she got in touch with GPR and they said, oh, we'll put a block on it, an electronic block, still rung. They came out and then they disconnected it and still rung. And it turned out to be her husband who was trying to get through, in the end. And we used to sort of go in a little circle there on the spot, and but
That's wonderful.
that's what we used to do, ghost busting. And there were one or two where they were less than what you would call spiritual entities, and they wouldn't. You couldn't do anything. Just say, well, do not disturb these people, and we worked it out. So yes, I've been doing it for quite a long while now, and then unfortunately Dee passed away, passed the spirit, through medical conditions and things, and then I found Sue, and Sue had that experience with Alec Harris, I think it was, in Africa. I think it was Alec Harris, where she went to a circle, and it must have been a physical circle. She ended up on the roof, on the ceiling, looking down. And the woman in charge couldn't get her down, so they called in the medium, and he came in, and it turned out to be his guide that brought down. So go to the light, and then you can come down. So she had to go to the light, come, and then come straight back down again. And it turned out when she described this person, he said, "Oh, that's my guide that's helped you there." So she was doing that, but with her normal job, no chance. It was she worked in sociology and things like that, so she had no chance of doing anything like that. It's only when she met me and started getting more into spirit again that she started really begin to develop again. So yes,
Wonderful.
and
then in the early days when you were with Dee, that's when she said, "I'd like you to meet my brother," and then you did you guys?
That's right. Well, we went over obviously on honeymoon to California. We went 2 or 3 times over there, not on honeymoon, but one. Anyway, we went to California, and we had circles there with John, and he came over and had circles over in our place that we used for circles there, and so we really got on, and we used to phone each other twice a week, and if there's anything going on, we always got a very good repartee between us, and so I've done there's a few videos on the internet, which I did on John's behalf. He took part in them, but I did the video bit. Some of them weren't. They were done by another person, but so they're up there. They're not professional, but they're up there on the net, and we plan to do more. And then we've got the audios, of course, that we want to do.
The website is, that's all right, theusb.org. I want to turn to you, John, about your beginnings in spiritualism, and then how you ended up carrying the torch for the USB upon Michael's request.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you about it. I just want to do one thing. I want to reinforce what Pete said about the importance of groups who get together and discuss the teachings. That's very beneficial. Not just reading it, but discussing it. You learn so much more.
Agree.
Okay, so how did I first get into it? Actually, my grandfather was an atheist, and my father, uh, for some reason, got interested in the books written by Arthur Findlay. Arthur Findlay has a whole series of books about what he discovered about spiritualism and so forth. My father discovered them, became very interested, and his father, my grandfather, was very upset with my father. But there's a very interesting story in Leslie Flint's book, Voices in the Dark. And in that book, he tells how he was working on a road job one day while he was in the British Army. This was in World War II. And he saw this soldier, and there was a spirit man standing beside the soldier who wanted to tell him something, but he couldn't. And as Leslie tuned into this man, he realized that he was the father of the soldier. And so he called to the soldier and told him that his father was here and he wanted to apologize for being against his interest in spiritualism when he was alive. I thought that was a great story, and I never knew about it. My father didn't tell me until I read about it in Leslie Flint's book.
That's wonderful.
It is. It's
It's a
very.
nice tie-up. Yeah.
Anyway, my father was interested in spiritualism, and when he got married, my mother and father joined with a few other people in our village who formed a home circle and started trying to communicate with spirit and so forth. And apparently they had some success. And when I was going to university, they invited me to go to this gentleman's home circle where he was doing um, trance work, exactly. And so that's sort of been my introduction to it. My parents were interested and I was open to it, even though I was a scientist. And as you probably know, scientists are very opposed to spiritualism. They don't want to believe anything they can't see in a test tube, you know. But there are other things that you need to be able to believe, like love and solar radiation. There's all sorts of things that you can't see, but they happen, and so they don't investigate them properly. It's too bad. But anyway, I'm sort of in between. I do both.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And now the torch was passed from Michael to you to carry on the
Well,
USB.
when Michael was getting very old and he couldn't do work anymore, he had started just recently combining together the different newsletters into topics. Like he might have written in different newsletters about one topic. He wanted to put those all together into one topic, which would go into a book. And we had started doing that together. And then he said he can't do any more. He wants to finish the book. He can't do it. He asked me if I would undertake to do it. Now, I was still working, and it was a very demanding thing. You know, there was a lot of paperwork and everything to do with all these topics and all these pages and everything. And they had been cut and paste and handwritten corrections and things like that, joining them together. So I was very troubled by it, but I took a few weeks to decide. I'm sorry to say, but in the end, I decided that look, I can't let all these wonderful teachings go to waste. Right? Nobody would know about them. And so just a few people would receive them in the mail and they would file them away and what would happen? So I said to him, yes, I will do it. But, you know, it was a commitment. That really nailed me down for the rest of my life because it took me about 10 years to finish the book, which I finally got it published and everything because I was still working for a while. And I got a number of volunteers who helped me retype them and so forth. And then I had to spend a lot of time correcting them and smoothing them out and all the rest, and organizing them into chapters and all that. That was all left for me to do. And Michael departed this world in 1992, and I inherited all his files and communications and everything that he'd done. And I went to his house and brought everything home, and I've had it ever since. And so, therefore, I started work on preparing and publishing the book Spiritual Light that you were holding up earlier. Now, I had volunteers who helped me, as I think both of you have mentioned. There's two different versions. There's a paperback version, which is print on demand, and then there's a deluxe version. Yeah, Pete has the paperback, and you have the deluxe version, right? And the deluxe
Soft version.
is special because it's built. The pages are sewn together. They're not glued, so they won't fall apart. The paper is very special, long-lasting paper. The cover is very tough and strong. It will survive for a long time. I wanted to have something that would survive. And then, besides doing all this work on the book, I also had realized that I had to develop a website which would offer it to the world, tell the world about it. And that took a lot of time as well. So I did that. And the book is not available in bookstores. It's just available online because bookstores want to double the price. They want to have a very high markup. And so I thought, that's going to make it too expensive, make it $40 to $50. I don't want the price of that range. So I just restricted it to online sales. And it has been selling. And
It's available at Amazon, isn't it?
yes, you can get the paperback from Amazon and other online sellers. And then we've done various things to try and promote it. Like we made some, and Pete helped me with this, and others helped me with making some videos, which we've got on our website, telling about the background of the whole book. And then we started producing our own newsletters, which we distribute every quarter, every 3 months. We send out to a free newsletter to anyone who's interested. And we have a Facebook page on there, which we unfortunately don't do very much. And then some organizations like the Zanets, they mention our work from time to time, which is very kind of them. And so all the proceeds from selling the books doesn't go to us. It goes to the USB to help them defray their expenses of running the website and all the rest, printing the books and so forth. So
there's also a Spanish book in preparation that is nearly finished, John.
Yes, I was going to say that's current activity. Shall I?
Yes, go right into it. I'd like to find out what is on the website, theusb.org, if someone should go there. And then if you could talk about current activities.
Okay. What's on the website? All right. There's a description of the organization and its work. There's description about the spirit teachers who provided us the information. There's a bookstore page where you can order the books. You can read quite a lot of the books. We can't return them if you don't like them. You have to read and decide whether you want to keep it or not.
You can always donate it, and it'll find its way into the right hands.
Let's see what there's a communications section where we allow people to write to us if they have questions. We have that's where we have the videos and all the information of what we can share at this point or what we're developing, what's coming.
There's a list of the newsletters on there, the current ones.
You can find all the old newsletters.
Yeah.
That's a good start. That's a great start. Do you have a group of volunteers helping you with this?
Question, yes. Yes, so we have about 10 or more of people who help us in various ways. Some of them are very involved and do quite a lot of work. Like one of them manages producing the newsletters. One of them is our medium. She's a beginner medium, but she's doing very well. She's learning and developing. When we have our meetings with our spirit advisors, we have one who prepares announcements for putting them elsewhere in other places where people are willing to post them for us. And that includes the Zamits. And then we had a lot of help. One of my sisters lived in Spain even before Pete moved to Spain. Pete and his wife, my sister Dee, they lived together in England, but because Dee got health problems, she had to move to a dry climate. She moved to Spain. My younger sister was already living in Spain, and so she formed a USB group where they studied the book it took a couple of years to go through the whole book in their weekly meetings, but they decided to translate the whole book into Spanish because there's a large Spanish-speaking community in South America, right, and in Spain. So I think it's the second largest spoken language. Anyway, they decided to translate it into Spanish. So that's a big project which is near completion. And another project is preparing an ebook version of this book, which would be a condensation. It would only contain part of it, but it would be much more easy to send it to any place in the world electronically instead of having to ship all this paper, which costs so much. To ship a book from here in America to England costs more than the price of the book. It's really ridiculous. And so we're looking forward to having that ebook before too long. And then a third thing that we really want to do is with help from Pete particularly is clean up and release these audio recordings that Michael made when he was discussing the teachings with the spirit guides, with the spirit teachers, with some of these great souls were talking to Michael, and he's recorded it. It's wonderful. And I'm sure you didn't hear those. Yes, Pete?
I was only going to say he did a lot of recordings, but in those days the tapes were so expensive that he tended to only keep the ones that were really good and wipe the rest, so that there's not. And I don't know, about 30 or so, 35 recordings from Leslie Flint, and I think there's a couple from it's the one from Estelle Roberts with the red cloud on it.
Yes, there are.
So there are things that want to come out there. They will all be really interested in them, but they need cleaning up, and I can do that. I mean, I've got all the equipment to do that, but I'm looking forward to getting them going.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
What else, John? I know you sent some notes to me.
Well, we made Sue, Pete's companion. Sue interviewed me to ask me about Michael's life.
Yeah.
We made an audio recording of my answers to her questions, rather like you're asking me now, but different. And Pete is cleaning up that lot. He had to do all the editing and so forth, and we're hoping to have that to release. He says it's like a couple of hours or so of recording. It's quite a lot.
Video.
Video.
Yeah, soon.
So that's in the works. Michael wrote some songs. He was a very accomplished performer, writer. He wrote plays, he wrote poems, he composed music, and he's got some spiritual songs that about the USB's teachings that we're going to release, we hope. And also, I've become pretty old now, as you can tell. I can't keep this up forever, and I'm trying to find people who will take over my responsibilities. It's another challenge. It's a challenge to find people to do that, I'll have to say.
If someone should happen to listen to this and get involved, they can contact you through the website?
Yeah, they can get through the website. They can communicate with us. That's right. Contact us through the website. Definitely.
There's many younger people getting involved and getting excited, and they don't know where to start. And we all know how important and what value service is. So if they can be of service and also partake in these wonderful teachings, you never know. So I think it's my job to get this interview to as many ears and eyes as possible and let the spirit world work their magic, making sure people watch.
There's one other thing I'd just like to say there. I don't know, John never mentioned it, but he did mention earlier all the amount of paperwork, information, everything that he's got will need to be put into some place where it will be safe for posterity, and tapes, and they still play pretty well. Some of them are very good, and John doesn't want to lose all that. If he when he does eventually go to spirit, he doesn't want that lot to disappear. So that's what he's looking for. Everybody knows places where they can be safe and not mistreated and things like that, you know.
Thank you for sharing that. John, you mentioned that there's 3 big tasks.
3 big tasks. Yes, I will just quickly remind you what the 3 big tasks are. The 3 big tasks that I've been given, or I was given, I don't know if I'm going to be able to complete them, but I'm really anxious to do so. They are: 1, the condensed version of the teachings of the book as in the form of an ebook. That's the first one. The second one is the Spanish translation. And the third one is all these audio recordings of Michael talking to the spirit communicators about this work. Those 3 things, I think, are very important to the future of the USB, and I'm very anxious to do them. But I have so many small things to do all the time that it's very hard to concentrate on them. But that's my ambition. And I've prayed very hard that I'll be able to deliver those before I leave.
There is a way. There's teams of people that I see coming forth. There's current technology to help with some of that. If we can get a digital version of some of the videos and the audios, there's things to clean them up. And I'm finding tools myself to make my job a little easier. So I'll do my best to get the word out and to share. Are you both still sitting in home circles?
Yes. Every Thursday, May.
We have our meetings as well. Our meetings are with our spirit advisors, so we're.
What's that? Every 2 weeks. Yeah.
And the spirit advisors still working with the USB in the direction?
The spirit advisors are these people who were friends of mine and others when they were recently on Earth. They just recently passed on, and they were appointed by Michael to be our guides, as it were, to guide our organization in its work. And recently, Michael has told me to give top priority, in spite of these 3 jobs, he told me top priority to try and passing on your responsibilities now. So that's a little bit concerning. I've got to really push it, but I need to anyway because I'm deteriorating. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. I'm sorry about that. And I would like to say, if another area that we need help is if we can find a medium who's very good at evidence. You know what an evidence medium is? A person who can give you names and addresses and things like that. We need somebody to confirm some spirit help that we're getting. We want to know evidence of who they are. And we're having trouble finding that. Okay, so I've told you about the all the things. Well, I would like to end with one thing that I think is rather important, and that is, well, I've mentioned it before, but I'll remind you of it, and that is the spirit world is very concerned about planet Earth. There is so much materialism on Earth, materialistic behavior, and inappropriate behavior, greed and power-hungry people and so forth, who are making life miserable for the rest of us. It could be so much better life on Earth. And that's what they want us to realize and work towards. And that's what the teachings are trying to help us get there. So that's why I've been dedicated to this ever since I retired in 2000. I'm been trying to push this lot, and I'm so grateful that a few people are starting to help me like you are, Sandra. This is wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Do you mind, gentlemen, if I ask you how old you are?
Well, I'll tell you how old I am. I'm 88.
88.
Yeah.
I'm 77.
77, and I'm 59. And the only reason I ask this is just a demonstration when you make your life of service, that you have passion, you have something to live for. And I think we live a whole different kind of life when we are being responsible and we are being of service, as opposed to being the victim and waiting for things to happen. It's the only reason I ask that.
It also helps to keep your mind in good shape by working on things like this.
Absolutely. Pete, any closing words for you?
I'd just like to thank you for taking up this case for us and doing this lovely video. And thank John for doing, as I said before, all that he's done about the book and everything. Because without John, he knew what was going on, but without taking up the book and doing it, we would never know anything about it, because it would have been lost when Michael passed the spirit, So, no, I'm grateful, and I hope I can live long enough to do the tapes and everything that needs to be doing before I go, But more power to everybody's elbow, that's what I say.
That's right. That's right. John, any last words for you for today?
Mission to be able to just to feel that I'm working with those wonderful souls who the leaders in the spirit realm. They are so advanced, wise, spiritual. To be associated with them is an honor. And I just worked my butt off to try and help them because I just feel it's the right thing to do. And I hope we'll find other people who feel in time and join us in this mission of service. I'm just so happy to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you both so much for being my guests here today.
It's a pleasure.
It has been a wonderful pleasure, and I'm very grateful for your questions and guiding us through this process. It's very interesting.
I will help as much as I can, and I know there's a whole group, our audience members, that some people will just get the itch to get the book Spiritual Light, and I can remind everyone to go to theusb.org and find out more about this incredible organization. And if you feel the tug to donate some of your time and resources, I know there's some very smart people that can help make things happen. So I want to thank our guests again, and I want to thank you, our listener or our viewer, for taking the time to be with us today. A reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can find lots of things, including our free Sunday gathering inspirational service with medium demonstration included. Don't forget to enter your name and email address and get a copy of my book and a lot of other free good things. Yeah, there's lots of good things coming up, in fact, all at that website. Between this podcast, We Don't Die, where I do extraordinary interviews, I believe. And then I also have a podcast called Shades of the Afterlife on iHeartRadio, which is more different clips within each and every episode. But I have now over 730 unique conversations about life after death, including help through grief and how to have a powerful life while you're here. So everything I heard from these two gentlemen goes hand in hand with all the core beliefs that I have as well. So remember, come visit at wedon'tdie.com. In closing, I'm Sandra Champlain. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your host on We Don't Die. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is so important. So find your truth, find your light, be of service, love, forgive, those basics, and you can never go wrong. So I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Brilliant.